there, and a warm welcome to another episode of Today's Parent, where we endeavor to connect you with experts and provide you with information to make your parenting journey a bit more easier. I'm your host, Christine Kasina. Have you ever heard of ODD? I know some of you have heard of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and other kinds of disorders when it comes to behavioral matters. Today we are going to talk about ODD, oppositional defiant disorder. Apparently this is something that occurs in some children, and today we have an expert in studio who wants to empower us and enlighten us on matters ODD. Her name is Dr. Frida Kameti. Karibu sana to the show, Daktari.
Thank you, Christine.
ODD, that is a new one.
We have, so you don't feel bad, we have about 300 disorders.
Wow, behavioral.
Behavioral and neurological.
Wow.
So don't feel bad the fact that you've never had it. But it's also one of the very, very rare conditions, but it does actually exist. It happens in childhood. So we have childhood onset.
Define it for us. What is ODD?
Let's start from there. ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, is a behavioral disorder which is characterized by several behaviors.
Right.
Anger outbursts.
Anger outbursts.
Yes. So you'll ask, what's the difference between my child just getting angry and a child who has ODD? When your child is angry, you're able to soothe them and they're able to calm down. With a child who has ODD, oppositional defiant disorder, it's very difficult to soothe that child.
So what happens in that case?
So with this particular child who has really severe anger outbursts, you have to, we always tell parents, because you have to remember, which we'll get to that, it doesn't necessarily have a cure, but it's managed by using different techniques, which we'll talk about.
Right.
So what happens is the child experiences anger outbursts, irritability. They have no respect for authority whatsoever.
No respect for authority.
Yes, and it starts with you as a parent. So you tell the child, don't do that. They do exactly what you just told them not to. You tell them, don't do. For them, don't or no is not a word that exists in their vocabulary. And not just that, as they are growing older, any authoritative figure, a teacher, an adult,
policeman, defiant.
Completely.
Right.
That's why you find a lot of people who are in our jail system. At some point, if you take a very detailed history, you will find that there was some aspect of ODD.
You think?
Absolutely. Because a lot of people who end up in jails have no respect for authority to start with. And for them who have ODD, it starts from the home. So by the time they're growing up and getting to the public, that's a gone
case.
But now here's the thing. When they actually experience these things, some of those behaviors actually disappear as they become teenagers.
Right.
Or as they get to adulthood. So for some. But for some, it still continues even to adulthood. And that's when you find most of the people who, laws don't mean anything to them. They break them because they can, and they feel that they can. That's why you find them, in jail. And so if you were to do a study, you will actually find there was some aspect of ODD when this person was actually growing.
Dr. Kameti, for a parent who's watching right now and they're wondering, does my child have ODD? How can you tell? Because you say it manifests a lot when a child is younger. How young? 2 years, 3 years, 5 years?
We're talking about even two, starting from age 2.
So anything from age 2, ODD can start?
Yes.
So how do you tell the difference between anger being a normal, an anger outburst? You've mentioned that you can then calm them down, but you know, 2-year-olds with their tantrums and going through that phase.
Yes.
I don't know how it's possible to tell the difference.
So for ODD to actually be diagnosed, that child should have had symptoms for about 6 months.
Right.
Okay. So if your child is having those symptoms, anger, irritability, defiant, for 6 months, then we're able to start questioning, okay, are we looking at, because there's that normal, it's time for bed, go to bed.
Yeah.
And they resist.
But then they go to bed.
And then there's that one of, bedtime is a story like day in, day out.
Like, no, I'm not going.
Yes.
Tears,
Yeah.
kicking, shouting.
And it's followed by other behaviors.
Yeah.
But to top it all, they have very poor social skills. What do I mean by that? This child does not play well with others. This child is a bully. This child blames everybody else for whatever behaviors they have. You know, you find your child playing with the other children.
So it's not me.
He hits, no, it wasn't my fault. He's the one who took my toy.
Wow.
It's not my fault. She's the one who did ABCD. Will never take responsibility for their actions. Okay? So that's another thing as well. And very argumentative. You know, it's time for your bath.
No.
But I showered yesterday. But you see, it has to be a consistent behavior.
So 6 months.
For 6 months.
At least 6 months.
For 6 months. Then that's when you'll start having those red flags. Like, okay, something might be just terribly wrong with
Okay.
my child.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is it diagnosed, Daktari?
So diagnosis of ODD is something that we have to take a lot of history taking. And when I mean history taking, doesn't mean you come in to see me and you tell me my child is having issues,
Right.
throwing tantrums and everything. So I will listen to your story and understand how you interact with your child and how he interacts with other people in the home. Then I will get information about people that are involved with him. Say daycare, who's the person in charge at daycare
Right.
that spends more time with him. The nanny, they have a sibling. I will want to talk to the sibling. How does he or she play with you? How, what do you see that you don't like about your brother? Some behaviors that you don't like. In school, I'm talking to the teacher. What behaviors do you see? How disruptive is his behavior in class? And then the other thing that I also will go ahead and do, sometimes I will come and actually sit in the environment.
And watch the child.
And watch the child. The child will not know what I'm doing in the house, but I will just observe. Because you can learn so much from just observing than asking a 5-year-old, so why do you like hitting other kids?
I don't know.
Why do you not listen in class?
I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but me sitting and just observing tells me a lot because I'm able to see both his or her non-verbal communication and verbal communication. So all that, then I'm able to differentiate, is this a child who's one, don't forget we talked about trauma some time back.
Yeah.
Is this a child who has some trauma issues? Because it can also manifest like that. And I'll explain why. A child is coming from a very unstable environment, very toxic environment. What do you think will happen when this child goes to school? Will repeat what he's seeing at home.
Yeah.
Mom is yelling at dad, dad is calling names, nanny is calling the young sister names. The child comes and repeats. So they are repeating what they're seeing. So I have to make sure, is this something that they're seeing in the environment?
Right.
And they're just repeating
Okay.
it? Or is this actual ODD? Are these just behaviors that are manifesting in the environment where they are?
Right.
So that is, I'm able to tell, am I looking at ODD or what exactly I'm looking at? And are there triggers? Because there can also be triggers. So here's the part about ODD that most people struggle with, even professionals. So we have two ways that people talk about what causes ODD. So we have a learning theory. A learning theory where it's like learned behavior. Oh, I see my mom hit my dad. When I go to school, I hit other students.
Okay.
Because I can do that. I see people yelling and calling each other names. I presume that it is okay to do that, so I do that. Then there's the developmental theory, where a child does not develop enough to understand that I can now detach from my parent. I don't need mommy all the time when I need to go to go potty. I can just go to the potty when I need to do my business. I don't need, if I'm hungry, I can ask mommy for food, but once it gets here, am I able to feed myself, or I'm just going to sit there for mom to feed me? Not being able to detach from the primary figure can also be part of,
one of the causes of ODD.
Yes, because it's dysfunctional. This child is developing at a very slow rate and is struggling to detach from the primary caregiver.
Right.
So then we see those. So then there's that sense of insecurity that comes in. And how do children act out? They act out through, I'm going to be violent, I'm going to act out, I'm going to call people names so that people stay away from me.
Daktari, when you talk about the full, when you define ODD in full, it's oppositional defiant disorder. I'm trying to see what extreme of defiance is this defiance for it to become, a real issue.
So for instance, a child that is at home does not play well with other siblings or other children. Every time a neighbor tells you, your child did this, your child came to my house and broke this, your child pushed my child, and it starts even in the home. The sister, the brother is always complaining. He's done this, he's done that. But it's always this
particular child.
Yes, day in, day out. Then the child starts school. You're thinking, well, he's going to grow out of it. She's going to grow out of it. It's a child. And you get calls from the teacher day in, day out. Your child cannot. So the other thing is you have to be careful because we have what we call ADHD.
Yes.
And then we have ODD. So we have teachers sometimes confuse and tell parents, your child has ADHD. Why? They can't still. They are not focusing. They have poor concentration. I'm not able to, they're not able to follow rules.
So ADHD, in fact, that's the next question I wanted to ask you before we wrap up our first part, is maybe a child is just hyper and we are thinking they have ODD. But I get your point that when we are talking about ODD, the difference with ADHD, the child being hyper is there's no element, or even if there's an element of defiance, it's not as much, right?
It's not as much, and it's with ADHD, it's more, a child is not able to sit still for long.
ADHD. Right.
A child is not able to sit still for long. They have a problem. You give an assignment, and within maybe a minute or two, they have no idea. They're distracted by something else.
Yeah.
Another child crying, or a car passed by, so they've forgotten what they're supposed to be doing. But with with a child with oppositional defiant disorder, there's the aspect of violence. With ADHD, violence comes in. I'm frustrated because my teacher wants me to write my name and I don't know how to write my name. And my teacher doesn't understand that. And I'm not able to communicate that.
Yeah.
So what do? I start tearing my book apart.
I act out.
But with oppositional defiant disorder, this child might even be very smart, by the way. But the fact that the teacher ordered us to write our names, that's a problem right there. Who are you to order me to write my name? I don't want to write my name.
And I'm not going to do it.
Exactly. So and then there's that aspect of violence as well that comes in. And the fact that you find that with ADHD, there's a teacher I will connect with, and you'll ask that teacher and they'll tell you, no. This child is very fine in class. In my class,
interesting.
But then you go to another class, that teacher is like,
no.
He cannot even write his name. He cannot sit still for 2 seconds when we're actually trying to diagnose ODD.
All right, Dr. Let's take a short break, and then when we come back, you'll then share with us if ODD is something that is treatable, is it something that we get to manage, and tips you can share with our parents.
Okay.
In today's episode of Today's Parent, we are talking about ODD. We are so thankful of all the questions you've been sending us, and this is one of them that was sent by a lot of parents. They want to get a better understanding of what is ODD. I hope at this point in time you have a good understanding, and when we come back from the break, Dr. is going to break it down for us on how we can cope with ODD if our child has it, and if there's any treatment available. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. In today's episode of Today's Parent, we are talking about ODD, Oppositional Defiance Disorder. And we have Dr. Frida who's breaking it down for us. She had mentioned at the beginning, can you imagine there are over 300 behavioral disorders? Today we are focusing on ODD, and if there's any other disorder you'd want us to discuss, please make sure you reach out on the SMS number and send us a message. Dr. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm wondering to myself, if I have a child who has ODD, what kind of life do they then go ahead and have? What are the consequences, the impact on a child with ODD? What happens?
So, just so we are not stigmatizing these, children who have oppositional defiant disorder. Oppositional defiant disorder is manageable, just like the way we would manage diabetes, hypertension, and all that.
Really?
Of course, it has its own challenges, just the same way with any other physical ailments. So, you have to be prepared for a long road as a parent. What do I mean by that? You're going to find that you get a lot of calls from the school because because of the behavioral issues that your child is displaying in school.
Yeah.
In school. And with even just not school, but with authority figures in your community, wherever your child is involved, you will definitely hear complaints.
So a parent needs to prepare for that.
Exactly. And one thing why I say you have to be prepared, you have to be patient. You have to have compassion, one for yourself and one for the child.
That's important.
Because if you don't have compassion, you will not be able to help your child through this. You have to have compassion in the sense that you have to understand that he is not doing this intentional. It is not intentional.
No.
Him beating up other kids is not intentional. Him being disregardful of any rules is not intentional. And so understanding that, but also understanding you don't always get him to or her to get away with it. So that's where now your parenting skills have to be a notch higher.
Yeah, because I'm then wondering, Dr. Frida, do I need to go to school to explain to the teachers and and the head teacher that my child has ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, so you can expect A, B, C, D, E, and anytime he does that, just know it's because of the disorder. It doesn't mean any harm.
Yes.
Do we need to go to school to inform the people who work, who educate the child and work around the child?
Yeah, absolutely. And you actually are supposed to do that. It's helpful if you do that with all the disorders. Reason being, you're leaving your child here for what? About over 6 hours. And this person is going to be in charge of that child.
Yeah.
They need to know what to expect. They need to know how to handle this particular person.
Right.
Of course, they're teachers. They're not professionals.
Yeah.
So if you equip them with, when he does this, this is what we usually do at home. And this is what works and this is what doesn't work. And the other thing that you also expect from your kid who has ODD is the social skills. They're very poor because from a young age, they did not learn to take responsibility for their actions. They're very defiant, argumentative, and they get angry very easily. Something that would ordinarily not annoy a child will annoy someone with ODD. So understanding those symptoms and being able to express them to somebody else is also very, very important.
Right.
But like I said, it is almost a full-time job having a patient who has ODD. And why is that? Because if you're not getting calls from school, you're getting calls from other parents. You're getting calls from the church. And now you have to think, everywhere we go, I have to literally have him here like my handbag. Because if I let him go, disaster is about to happen. So, and also, how do I still make sure that he understands that he's safe, as well as not make him feel like an outcast? Because that's the other thing that happens. Or, my mom is always, or my dad is always like this. Yeah. And what that means is I can't play with people. I must be a very terrible person. And then now this child grows with very, very poor self-esteem. And it's one of those things you always have to ask yourself, do I ever get to win? And yes, you do get to win. Because in as much as there's no cure, there's actually ways to help your child.
All right. Dr. Before we get to how we can help the child, we have a question that has come in from Jonathan. And Jonathan's question is, how do I discipline my child if they have ODD?
That's a very good question. And it's also very challenging, especially even for a parent. Yeah. Because this is not a condition that is, that is curable. It's behavioral. You're not always going to be able to control your child's behaviors. And one thing I tell parents is you've got to pick your battles with a child who has ODD. You tell the child to stop doing this. First of all, ask yourself, is the child in danger? Is anyone else in danger? Is it something that they're going to do that's going to harm anybody or themselves? No. Then you know what? I'm not going to. Because they're going to argue until the cows come home why they want to do whatever it is they're doing. So picking your battles as a parent.
So that's a top tip you can share with our parents.
Absolutely.
Pick your battles.
You have to pick your battles. And then you also have to set consequences, set limits. And what is that? You basically have non-negotiable rules in your house. Non-negotiable rules.
Such as? I wonder.
So non-negotiable rules entail safety. I know I keep talking about safety, but it's about safety. Is my 3-year-old going to start a fire that is going to set the house on fire?
On fire.
So we do not light matches. We do not even touch matches in this house. Anything to do with fire, we do not do
So
that.
matches, no.
Yes. So you ingrain it in your child to know that certain rules are just not negotiable. We do not open doors for strangers. I don't care whether mom is in or mom is out. You know, I don't care if the person on the other side sounds like mom. You do not open doors for strangers. So there are those rules that are just non-negotiable. You can throw tantrums until tomorrow, but I am not budging on this. You have to do homework when you get home from school. You know, you have to listen to your teachers. If you don't listen to your teachers, there are consequences. What are the consequences? Positive reinforcement.
But
So
do they understand consequences?
so that's just the thing. You have to repeat it enough times until it's, and that's why I'm talking about positive reinforcement. So, so for instance, Carol, the teacher told me today you behaved well, you only had 2 issues with 2 kids. First of all, you need to make Carol feel very good about the fact that she did follow a few rules in school today.
Right.
Okay? So what do we talk about a ratio of what? Is it 5 to 1? Give 5 positives and 1 negative. So what does that mean? You talk about the positive things. You're doing really well in managing your emotions. You're doing really well listening to your teachers, playing with other kids, and shower them with positive. Then you take that 1 negative and just don't throw it in their face. But I am told that you did not get along with Peter. Why did you not get along with Peter? Did anything happen? So ABCD didn't happen. Okay, so I understand that Peter did ABCD, but when we get angry, doesn't mean we hit others. So that you take that negative and you turn it into a learning moment for this child. And it gets tiring because that's something you're going to do 24/7. But at some point, it will get ingrained. We don't hit others. And also, we're not always going to get what we want.
Right.
Okay, and that's
okay.
that's life.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the other thing about oppositional defiant children when it comes to parenting is remembering the small rewards. Even for you giving yourself grace.
So reward good behavior
Yes,
as well.
but even for you yourself. Because you can imagine a parent who continuously is getting calls, continuously doors are being knocked, your child has done this. It's overwhelming.
That can be hard on any parent.
Yes, and now it's like you're being told your parenting is being challenged.
Yeah.
You as a parent.
You then feel like a bad parent.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. So give yourself grace and just know you're doing the best that you can because you know you're trying your best.
Yeah.
And that's how you'll be able to give your child grace and not be, it's very easy for us to also turn to be ODD.
Yeah.
You know, he throws a fit,
Yeah.
I throw a fit. He throws things across the hall, I do the same thing. So don't forget, children mirror what we do. So being patient with yourself is very, very important. So those are some of the things that you're able to, and talking to your child.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we have to remember they still have feelings. And some of these ODD children, it's a defense mechanism. If I'm able to not listen to what the parents are saying, the teachers are saying, then I don't have to get close to them.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? I can always get away with whatever I want.
Right.
So being able to, parent them and talk to them to understand what is it that they're struggling with. Why is it that when they're told you can't do ABCD, their easiest way is to scream, yell, call names, what is it usually they're going through? So practicing what we call moment by moment. So you were sitting in class, and then what happened? I was sitting in class, and then Jane came and took my pencil.
And
okay.
then I hit her.
Yeah, and then I hit her.
God,
so, okay, before Jane came, took your pencil.
Yeah.
What was happening? What were you thinking? What were you,
Yeah, and what were you feeling?
Yes, what were you feeling? Well, I wanted to go to the toilet, but the teacher didn't want to give me permission, and you'll be surprised what information you'll get when you talk to your child.
I hear you.
Because as adults, we are always very fast to, it must have been my child's fault.
course,
Because
yeah.
my child is a pain in the house. So obviously, he's
Is
going
a pain in school, a pain in church.
Exactly. So that's what's going to happen. But if I talk to him, I will understand, hey, my child wanted to use the bathroom, but was not able to. But because of what he's experiencing, he's not able to just focus on what he needs to do appropriately. So throwing a fit then gets him to go to the hallway.
Gets him a reaction.
Then he actually gets to go to the toilet. Don't forget, their behaviors are trying to get a need met.
Thank you, Dr. I'm happy that you've mentioned that there is management, different interventions that can be done.
Yes.
And coming to see you is one of the options that a parent can invoke and see how to get help for themselves and for their child.
Yes.
Thank you
and
so
that's
much.
very important, not just the child.
For both of them.
Exactly.
Thank you, Dr. for coming to share.
Thank you.
Today we were talking about ODD, Oppositional Defiant Disorder. Dr. has mentioned that there are over 300 behavioral disorders. All our children are uniquely different and they are special. If you suspect that your child has any form of, something is off, and as a mom, as a dad, you can always tell where something is off. Don't be afraid to seek extra help. There is no shame in asking for help. And with a lot of these conditions, early intervention is what is important, because that is what is going to help you manage that condition. I hope you found this show to be so insightful. And if you have any other questions when it comes to ODD, please send us an SMS and we'll connect you to Dr. Frida. Thank you so much for watching. I have been your host, Christine Kasina, and we've been gladly hosted at Little Cribs, the home of fun, exciting, durable, and exciting kids furniture like what you see behind me. If you're looking for parenting information, head on to www.supermamas.co.ke. Thank you so much for your time. See you next time. Goodbye.